Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason. Today, we're taking a look at a brand new map called Azurite Shores, version 1.0.1. I'd be lying if I said it was my first look at this. We did play a couple of matches on this map on stream before I got a chance to cast this game. However, I've heard that today's match is quite a banger. So, spawning in the northern side, representing the red team, it's going to be Egg Roll. Not sure why, but I just love that name. Egg Roll going to be an Armada commander and going for some hovercraft. Pretty weird start, but I guess it makes a whole lot of sense on this map specifically. We'll get into that more here in just a second, but before we do, let's meet our blue team leader, spawning almost the same position, however in the back line, representing the blue team as a Cortex commander. It's going to be Duck Viking. Unfortunately, does not have his little Viking helmet, but we can dream. Keep our hopes up that one day Duck Viking can get his own little Viking helmet. Got to win a tournament in order for that to happen. So hopefully this is Duck Viking putting in the practice here to show us what they've got. Going for a Cortex Cortex bot lab here. Going to be pumping out a couple of those bots. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a transition here, and if the bot lab isn't just an intermediate step on the way to T2 and eventually into maybe airplay, maybe some sort of eco build. Kind of a weird map, so let's talk about it. You have 4 frontliners and 4 backliners, which is already extremely strange. That is opening the floodgates to allow for some devious shenanigans in the backline, right? You can almost imagine what the T2 shenanigans with 4 commanders working on it might be. Have a T2 lab in 4 minutes. But the other thing is, of course, that these frontliners are going to have to contend with this massive ocean right here. So this has no shallow parts. This is no traversability for vehicles, for bots, for anything like that. It is all entirely deep ocean. So if you want to get across, you're going to need hovercrafts, you're going to need transports, or you're going to need boats. And now, as far as things are going right now for both of these teams, I like it a whole lot better for the blue, who have already gotten 1, 2, and 3 boat labs already out and about on the water here. Gogan Dantis going to be a little bit late on the draw for the shipyard. However, I think eventually it is on this commander's mind here. Yeah, thinking about it, we got to get the metal extractors up and running first. Of course, 2.5 metal per second means once you have all of these up and running, you're going to be stinking around. What is that going to be? 2.5, 5, 7.5. Well, I'll be darned if that isn't 10. Could be. Could be. Quick maths. They warned me never to do math while recording. It's the advice I got from everyone with any experience in this game. Gogan Dantes facing a couple of hovercraft here. These Seekers extremely slow going up this hill here, but eventually they do manage to get up to the top of it. They're going to start trying to apply some pressure. They could definitely snipe some of these metal extractors here. Very nice targeting right there. Oh, yep, there we go. Managed to get 1 metal extractor. Can we see a second, maybe even a third? Grunt is now out to try and help with all this. Oh, run away, Resbot. Little Resbot getting its nose where it shouldn't. Seekers miss micro just a little bit here, but otherwise still a fabulous trade, and they've definitely gotten well worth their values here as they pop those 2 wind turbines over there. It will be cleaned up eventually, like Gogan Dantes, but with those metal extractors down and the wind turbines down, it's going to give a nice little advantage to Egg Roll. Egg Roll almost needed to get that damage done because they went for the hovercraft bay, which is so much more expensive than the bot lab and eventually the shipyard. So as far as the tier of units goes, vehicles, or I should start at the top, which is basically naval units. Naval units are the king. They cost the most, but they also perform the best. They're at the top in basically any engagement that they can get into. And then it goes vehicles, and then it goes bots. And somewhere between bots and vehicles is hovercraft. So you're looking at essentially a weird matchup where you have slight inefficiencies because you're going for hovercraft here, but it also means that those torpedo launchers aren't going to work on any of these. So you have to go for these more expensive mantas, the floating heavy laser towers. Now, of course, those heavy laser towers can work on boats as well, so there is some merit to saying that they serve a dual purpose here, but obviously the torpedo launchers are much more efficient, cost-effective wise. 170 metal for a extremely potent T1 static defense here. Elsa going to be charged with trying to hold this, but there's too many of these goons, and they are going to sneak past. They sniped a construction worker, which is actually quite nice. That is going to hinder... who is this here? It's going to hinder Mr. Rocks, or... sorry, Mr. Ox, or M. Rocks. Either way, going to hinder our light blue player there quite a bit, because now they, have to bring the commander all the way forward again if they want to bring any more build power over to this lab. That's why it's almost always well worth it to go for at least one or two of those early game, early game. Oh, we have the air rework enabled. Early game construction towers. Sorry, got to finish the thought. Garpikes being used. Those are the T1 Cortex amphibious tank. It's quite bad, but it's better than nothing, I suppose, and that's probably what Osama bin Clappin is thinking. Our yellow commander here, as he starts to pump out a whole bunch of them and move them on to land. Commander suffering heavily from the bombardment from these Elsa, but you know what you can do if you're ever being bombarded and need a solution. You can always reach for the D-gun. D-gun, of course, can reach out into the ocean if you can manage to catch those ships. So a little bit of a iffy if. You have to try and gauge that correctly, but if you can manage to pull it off, it can definitely be extremely efficient. Remember, those ships cost quite a lot of money, but it also means if you D-gun them, it's quite a lot down the drain for your enemy. 5 Garpikes rolling up the hill, but only one was to remain. There's also a crocodile sneaking its way across as well here. Ships, of course, not going to be able to chase it, but the grunt will clean it up. Now, the Garpike is still an issue to deal with. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of solvent to get this Garpike cleaned up, but I think 3 grunts as well as an LLT will be more than enough to shut down that aggression. Only a metal extractor down, not the end of the world here. Overall, very nicely deflected by our green player up north. Now we have the air rework on, so just because it's so new and because it's so fresh, I should probably explain again what the air rework means. For one thing, T1 fighters can shoot down at the ground, so it means you could use these fighters to clean up any run-bys. So fighters are able to shoot at, well, anything on the ground the fighter would be able to fire away at. The other thing is bombers are quite a bit slower, but have quite a bit more health. As you can see, these are extremely sturdy. They grouped up quite a lot right there, so that's unfortunate. But they still managed to deliver their payload, and you know what? They do take out about half of the wind turbines available here for the yellow commander. Nicely done. Would have liked to see those split up, maybe going after a couple of different targets there if we're not going to take out some critical infrastructure like the lab or the build power. But at the end of the day, it's not a total loss as long as you get some sort of value out here. So offshore torpedo launcher, a coastal torpedo launcher. Sorry, I guess it's a shore torpedo launcher, not an offshore torpedo launcher. Trying its very best right now, but having a hard time getting those torpedoes to land in the water here. It's a tricky kind of defense. It has to fire it out and then land in the water and then coast towards wherever it's trying to go. It's quite bad, and you need quite a lot of them to use them to any great effect here. And immediately shot down by all these boats out in the water. 3,000 metal a boat certainly should beat one static defense. But it is a little bit frustrating as now Osama bin Clappin is pretty much trapped on this island. There's not really any good way off, and with the destroyers out now, yeah, that commander is pretty much stuck where he's at. Gilligan would be jealous. Love to see Gogandantes try and take this island back. One missile ship can whittle away at these LOTs until they're gone eventually. Prioritizing the metal extractor, not a bad idea though. A little hovercraft got stuck over here. The hovercraft who couldn't. Gogandantes moving forward here to try and capture this 2.5, and I think that's swell. I'd love to see a capture on this as well, the 2.5 of the red player over here. In fact, basically capture on all of this. Northern side pretty much entirely contested, or entirely won right now by the blue team, so that's really nice. Definitely going to afford the blue team the luxury of playing a little bit slower on the northern, or well, a little bit less aggressive, less units overall on the northern side here. Halberds going down to a whole bunch of these Cortex boats Armada boats over here. And there it is. Osama bin Clappin does go down here. The yellow commander that was trapped on this island finally loses its life as, there was no way for it to really evacuate from that island safely. Those destroyers will shoot it in the water. The Elsa will shoot it out of the water. It was pretty much just a dangerous dance until eventually it died. Nice little composition down here. Zek with 2 Ks. Couple of destroyers, couple of Elsa. Flying the commander in, very nicely done. Use the commander to eat up that wreckage, of course, but also build the metal extractors around here. This 2.5 metal per metal extractor coming in per second. Very, very nice. Extremely powerful. We do have a T2 lab up, though. Eggroll now on T2. No presence on the ships. However, having that T2 lab makes it quite nice to get an economy up and running. And certainly, if you're going to want to try and retake the seas, you might as well try and do it off of a T2 economy rather than a T1. So I don't mind it, at the very least for now, that we're going up the tech ladder. A couple of rocket hovercraft are out. If the boat stays still, these rockets will hit with the force of 1,000 suns. And here they come. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, rocket's very powerful. You got to be extremely powerful, or extremely careful rather, that you don't leave your units idle, because Yeah, rockets will absolutely obliterate them. Whether they're rockets out of the hovercraft, rockets out of the trucks, rockets out of any such place. Rockets are definitely the devastator of all static anything. The halberds are quite nice. They're like a baby version of the cataphract, except better. Better than the base cataphract anyways, because yeah, they can fire multiple times rather than just firing once and then not being able to fire for the next 10 minutes. They're a pretty epic unit. I definitely think the halberd is a little bit slept on. Maybe it's just me that sleeps on it, because I play a lot more Armada and Legion than I do Cortex, but it's a very powerful unit nonetheless. This is a overwhelming naval victory right now for the blue team. We are looking at, across the board, a complete total takeover of the entire middle of the map here. There's a single hovercraft eating up any of the wreckages out here. What are we going to do to get back into the water here as the red team? Looks like the answer right now for egg roll is going to be going into platypuses. I don't mind that. Tumbleweeds are also a little bit cheesy, but an undeniably effective way to brute force your way back into this sort of a match here. Platypus, relatively sturdy and going to be able to blast down some of these tidal generators, so that's always nice. Every little bit helps, and with tidal speed locked at 20, that's definitely very efficient and well worth trying to shut down. We do have some ducks encountering the platypus. They do not counter each other. They will cross quietly in the night. In the arms of angels. No, sorry. No singing. No singing today. There go the platypus, though. Firing away, taking down a torpedo launcher, so that's always nice. Gonna jump on top of this frigate as well. Platypus are a weird kind of a unit. They are excellent if they take exactly the right engagement, and absolutely horrible if they take the wrong one. And that was pretty good up until the point where they engaged the frigates. And once those frigates got engaged, I mean, you can see exactly how poorly that turned. It's a very strange kind of unit. It's oftentimes very difficult to gauge whether your fight is looking good or looking bad, or whether you should pull back or whether you should push on. It's a very, very difficult thing to call, so I don't blame egg roll here for losing those platypus, even if they didn't manage to get that much value out. Now, it'd be quite nice if we could move these fighters out above the water and start firing away over here. There's not a whole lot to shut down the fighters. Yeah, there's not a lot of anti-air actually mixed into any of these compositions. Those fighters can now fire away at any of these units above the land, so or on the land rather, so wouldn't mind seeing them think about doing that. Very ambitious pulsar coming up over here. Don't think that's going to happen as the ducks start to waddle their way up the shoreline here. What just fired that artillery? Oh, there's a Quaker. That's a bit interesting. Okay. Quaker has been built and is going to start firing away those heavy shells. It got updated recently. They've modified, Cortex that is, has modified their design of the Quaker, emphasizing a larger bore rifle and firing heavier artillery shells as a trade-off for a little bit of firing speed. Not the end of the world, though, when they only cost 360 metal, which for T2 is practically free. Yeah, ducks looking to push on forward here. They're being microed quite well. They don't have any way of dealing with the EMPs, though, that's for sure. Nicely done by the Shuriken here. I mean, I suppose they could just shoot them. Hadn't thought about that, but yeah, they can always just fire back at the EMPs. That's always a possibility here, but it won't matter as the platypus are slowly but surely cleaning all this up. If egg roll can manage to eat up all these wreckages, it could actually turn into an advantage here eventually, as a lot of these ducks end up feeding. But I think for the time being, the blue team is just sitting around scratching their heads wondering, well, we've won the naval battle. What comes next? The answer is you gotta hit some crazy eco right now. Now is the perfect time to start going into a absolutely massive T2 eco. JPLE here, our Lavender Commander, also known as Love, going to be going for some eco in the backline here. We already have 2 fusion reactors coming up. Murderbot going for some eco as well as some hovercraft. I think we got to shut these down and just go into that eco right now. We have a T2 Cortex Air Lab, so I'd love to see the T2 constructor going for eco here. The Cortex economy just ever so slightly cheaper, so when it's convenient to do so, it's worth it to go for the Cortex economy. A minor gripe. Actually, a phenomenal composition right here, because these goons are going to activate the flanking bonus right now, so these halberds can get a wonderful trade against those destroyers, and all said and done, what was that, a goon and a halberd going down for 3 destroyers? Destroyers clocking in at about 950 metal apiece. 880 metal apiece. That was a very positive trade right there for the pink commander. Oh my goodness, look how slow those halberds are going up the cliff, though. They're going to come back, and Mr. Tumnus is trying desperately to eco like a madman right now. You can see the wind farms all being built all over the place so that this commander has enough energy to pump out metal like crazy and go for some sort of an economy. A lot of overflowing metal right now, actually. Looks like we're going to go into a T2 here eventually. I think we need an energy storage. If we're going to go that heavy into wind turbines for economy, energy storage makes a lot of sense. Banisher on the hill up here, going to start firing away. Actually, a really nice decision. I like that quite a lot. Sharpshooters wouldn't be a bad idea either. There we go. Eggroll decides to go for some tumbleweeds here. Not surprised to see those coming out. They're just so bizarrely, blindingly effective that it's pretty hard to negotiate away from using them. Do have to self-destruct them for their full value, so it's something to be aware of. Oh, wow. That is a tumbleweed corpse. That should not exist. The wreckage of a tumbleweed. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I suppose the laser beam out of the commander underwater is that weak that it manages to kill a tumbleweed without it even destroying it. Despite that the tumbleweed does explode when it dies, still. Top 10 things that science just can't understand. Long-range missile ship's gonna start firing right over here. The longbow. It's got a bit of a queue to it. Interestingly, it's just told to patrol back and forth over here, and every time it gets a chance to do a little switchback, it fires. Not sure why they're queued that way. We should definitely just have these start firing away over here on the land, but that's no problem. As long as we got them over there, it should be all right. Love calling out that it's anti-nuke time, or it's nuke. Either one works. So we need to respond to this at the very least. Either put some pressure on or back off. Yeah, I think Gogan Dantes is thinking the same thing here. Pulling the units backwards to make sure that the frigates, the many frigates here aren't going to be sacrificed for no reason. The 11,000 metal in frigates. At this point, once you've won the sea, I feel there's no reason to keep these frigates around. I think it almost would make sense to take these back home, start getting them disassembled, right? Take them to the scrapyard. Sell them off for parts, for scrap. Gonna be in a better position for it, I believe. Yeah, hovercraft rocket launchers firing on more of this army that's just sitting around over here. I mean, yeah, that's great. Tremendous value. Moving in, launching the rockets, moving out. I like it. An excellent use of resources here on the back foot right now from pining. Either way. Yeah, that is quite nice. I really like that. A couple of bombers have also been sent out. Do we have a scout on these at all? I guess we know where the title generators are, and that's good enough for our pink player, Captain Cucumber here. Gonna drop those Cortex bombs, and they do a lot of damage now. Wow. Killer bombing run right there. Took out basically all of the power infrastructure for the green player. Yikes. Oh, might get the build power too. No, not gonna get the build power. Fighters do clean all that up. Still very, very nice. Taking down that title gen, or the title power right there. That was something else. Certainly very, very powerful. Hover tanks have now, or hover rocket launchers rather, have basically destroyed the entire fleet for the green player, save from the submarines which were safe underwater. It's quite impressive. The hesitation from the blue team is quite funny to me. Basically, what you need to do at this point is either go heavily into air or go heavily into amphibious units. One or the other, but it seems like nobody is really concerned with going for either here. Everybody just kind of trying to poke and prod. And speed this up until we get somebody trying to do something. Tremor is out now. Firing away wherever it can. I was told this thing was reworked slightly. Not sure exactly what was changed about this, but either way, a light rework is better than nothing. Tremor actually pretty good for this sort of a situation. You don't really need to hit anything in particular. You just know that your enemy's entire fleet is out there, and so you just fire away as much as you can. I would almost like the Tremor to have multiple firing patterns, so it would have one that's like a cross shape and one that's like a line, one that's like a... Let me draw this out. One that's like this, one that's like this, one that's like this. You know what I mean? I feel like that would be pretty cool. It'd give you a lot of variability to use use your tremor there. Might turn it into too much of a too powerful a weapon of stalling people into non-pushing. Speaking of pushing, a whole bunch of ducks on the southern side. No real perfect counter to these right now. The fighters are bold and they're trying their very best. Air. Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's a good call out. T1 fighters trying their very absolute hardest to clean all this up, but it's just taking them forever. Fighters have to double back and fire again and loop around. It's a very, very exhausting process and not very quick. Gonna need a whole lot more fighters than that if you want to use them reliably to do any sort of protection like this. Hover tanks getting all gummed up in the system here. Not sure exactly what's going on there. Very odd. Yeah, one way or another, those hover tanks need to be cleared out of there. Not sure what went wrong with those. Something about the slope here has completely gummed up the lab. T3 gantry. That's unfortunate for Fantastic Ma. Just suffering a little bit of bar jank. Yeah, happens to the best of us. All these ships that have been parked offshore here have just been ravaged by the hovercraft. I don't know if I've ever seen rocket hovercraft use this efficiently in the game before. They're an extremely effective piece of kit, and the fact that they're working so phenomenally here is just wonderful. It's a lot of T1 fighters. Going to clear out some of these bombers, but there's still a lot of them. Hailstorm's very, very heavy. You know what? Hailstorms didn't really find their optimal target right there, and I think most of this will be cleaned up. Nicely done by the hot pink player here to manage to clean all of that up. Very well done. Marauder's going to step out into the water here. That's cheeky. Doing a little bit of a Marauder run by. There is a Buccaneer, so at the very least these are spotted, but there's no way the Buccaneer is going to manage to kill hardly any of these, if any of them. Yeah. Their torpedo launchers are great and all, or their depth charge launchers are great and all, but don't do a tremendous amount of damage here, and so a lot of Marauder are going to make it all the way across the pond and into the enemy's backline. The one chance the boats have of doing any amount of damage over here. Alright, Marauder, we're up. Let's see how much damage we can do. Eggroll deciding this game is not over. You can tell the difference between a player with a plan and a player without a plan. Eggroll has absolutely had a build in mind here, and it was to go for enough Marauders to sweep across on this side, take out his lane, and eventually be able to build up forces here. Meanwhile, the blue player has been kind of spread all over the place. You can see going for a little bit of eco, going for some ducks underwater here, going for all sorts of different stuff, and it just hasn't paid off quite as effectively. At this point, the Marauders are in the backline, and there's not really anything that the blue player can do. Duck Viking's commander was out of position as well. He had plenty of warning about that, so we maybe could have seen the commander. I didn't see how far away it was, but I'm assuming it was pulled immediately and just didn't have enough time to get on over there. We need to see some crazy good splits here on these Marauders, though. We need to make sure that we keep as many of these alive as possible, and I'd love to see them each taking out an individual building here. So, yeah, going after the T2, maybe trying to get the commander. Duck Viking missing 2 of those D-guns there, and it's going to cost him his entire base. Marauders feeling merciful, I guess. More so just having a instinct of survival about them. Yeah, Shuriken not going to work all too good. A lot of anti-air on those Marauders, especially when they're grouped up like that. Down go the Marauders, or rather down go the fusion reactors. Fruity Booty looking at some tremendous damage in the backside. Devastating. 2 of the Marauders get D-gunned. 4 of them still up and active, tearing through the backline right now. This is massive value out for the blue team. Oh no. We were finishing our 5th advanced fusion reactor right when the Marauders decided to show up here. How unfortunate is that timing? Marauder's gonna focus down the advanced fusion reactor here. Just thinking about it. Oh, he D-gunned his own fusion reactor. Oh, that's just brutal right there. Love sending the D-gun directly into the advanced fusion reactor that he had just finished up, and sending his base directly to Davy Jones' locker. Wow. Talk about efficient right there. 5 or 6 Marauder, however many there were originally. It was about this many, I want to say. 7? 6 or 7, probably. Managing to absolutely ravage every single player in the backline here for the blue team. Taking out 1, 2, 3, and 4 different bases. Well, I guess they didn't get Murderbot's base. 3 different bases, maybe 4 if you count the front, or if you, you count Gogandante's base up here. Wasn't completely destroyed, but I think the second batch of Marauders certainly will. Love to see some more splits on these. Send another batch into the back line. Send another batch across the front over here. Try and micro them down, but this is all eyes on Eggroll. Can they manage to do enough damage to claw their team back into this game? Currently, the eco advantage is still not in the favor of the red team, but it's getting a whole hell of a lot closer. Yeah, we're pulling about 450-ish metal for the red team versus 550 for the blue. Means that no time at all, when some of these energy converters go down, some of these metal extractors for sure go down, it's definitely going to start looking more and more like a closer and closer match. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal work over here. It's also worth noting there's a whole bunch of anti-air built over here. Just wanted to flick to that really quick and see it on the mini-map there. But yeah, it's a team effort, right, to repel any sort of aerial play. Not that it matters all too much now that the backline in the air has been completely removed right now, but it's wonderful that we see those flak trucks built out there. It's one of those things that I often say is like a very easy way to give your team an advantage is to just go for a whole hell of a lot of flak trucks and put them all over the place. Eventually a bombing run or two is going to fly over them and your team's going to be happy. Now, Zek is in a killer position right now. Oh, massive D-guns right there. All of the Marauders get D-gunned apart. Beautifully done by Zek, saving his entire base with some killer D-guns and some wonderful commander positioning right there. Absolutely on top of it. Huge kudos to our 22 true skill German player coming in today, showing us that he's not sleeping on the job. He's not ready to have his base completely overrun by Marauders. Instead, going to start pumping some out himself and try the very best to send him across the map here. A whole bunch of Shiva are available. I'm guessing these were pumped out of this T3 gantry back here and eventually just handed over. I'm assuming that's the play here. Oh, a commando was built. Okay, interesting. We're going for a couple of them, actually. I wonder if how many we've got queued up here. 22 commandos. Well, I'll be damned. It's quite a few of them. Commando's very powerful, obviously, but not a unit I was expecting. Not for any particular reason, it's just that we don't see them all too often. I guess they're very APM intensive. You have to micro them quite heavily. You build enough of them, I suppose you sort of save yourself from that fate, but even still, they're yeah, very, very tricky. The best of the best can use commandos and make them look absolutely broken, but for your average Joe, like you and I, it's yeah, they're a bit of a trick unit, if you will. T2 Lab gets sniped right here for Gogan Dantes. That's a bit of a pain. Not that he was really producing anything too useful out of it. Like, we have a lot of ships and whatnot that are built right here, but how valuable are these ships at this point? All of the damage is being done by Marauders. It seems like what we should be investing a whole hell of a lot more in is some sort of land-based defense, or maybe going into something like gantry that we can actually pump some amphibious units out of. Some of those high-power amphibious units, I should say. Turtles and Garpikes not really going to cut it here. Yeah, Marauders realizing that they didn't quite finish the job over here. Duck Viking is still alive, and so they go back in for the round number 2. There we go. D-Gun's connecting a little bit better over here for Duck Viking. Gets a couple of those Marauder, but there's still quite a lot of them alive. And they're tearing this facility to shreds. T2 Lab goes down. T1 Air Lab goes down. It's going to be the Fusion next. Whole bunch of ducks dying there as well. Dragons finally coming out here. These are the, not the candidate unit dragons. These are just the regular dragons. They're good old-fashioned heavy laser beams, blasting away wherever they can. It's weird. The dragons suffer from a fatal flaw in that their laser beams, like all laser beams, cut off after a certain distance. So there's a lot of damage fall off on dragons like that. So there's this kind of weird problem with dragons where when they engage, sometimes they can be, yeah, a little bit underpowered just because they're firing and circling from the wrong distance here. What a cluster over here. An absolute mess if I've ever seen one. What are we building in there? Cataphracts? Ah, okay. Well, that's a ton of Marauder that have been pumped out by Zek. Using the base that he's still kept by de-gunning down the Marauders, he's going to be able to hold on for a little while longer. Cataphract not firing here. Oh yeah, these Cataphract are having a really, really rough time over here. Unfortunate. There goes the T2 Lab, spiraling away. Commandos up in the sky here. A lot of them getting shot down. It's pretty funny. They fall out of the sky, and Commandos are one of the few units that can, if not the only unit, that can get shot out of a plane and still survive, which is quite funny. Capital ship has been built here, and this is quite a pain. We're going to need shields immediately. We need a direct pivot into shielding equipment. Oh, it looks like we do have a shield up already. We're going to need 2 of them, though, to stop this ship if it concentrates its fire. Doesn't look like it's the case right now, though. Marauder running over the land on this island here. I guess it's better than sitting in the sea where all these torpedo launchers are. Pretty costly to get back in the water at this point, though. Kind of caught in a trap, and at this point, the Marauder pushes are getting less and less effective. Might be time to switch it up and go for a different sort of a strategy. Still a couple of them make it through. Bumlice trying to D-gun down as many as possible, though. Oh, D-gun. If it didn't skim on the water right there, it would have accidentally killed his own fusion reactor. Could have been quite unfortunate. Shield buying a whole lot of time right now, though. If nothing else, buying a tremendous amount of time for the red player to continue pumping out units and continue trying to get some sort of value out here. With the failure of that Marauder push, I think it's time to reevaluate here. There's also a lot of boats that are down right here. If we could find some way to eat all these up, that would be phenomenal. Maybe some air constructors, although we do have anti-air ships here, so that probably wouldn't work all too well either. Another big Marauder push over on this side. Captain Cucumber in a desperate situation right now. Going to have to D-gun as many as these Marauders as possible. Gets about half of them, maybe a third of them. The others are going to continue pressuring this base here. Oh, no splits. That advanced fusion reactor is going to take down all the rest. A little bit of a band-aid on a critical situation right there, that Marauder push was stopped by the explosion of the advanced fusion reactor, and it's not the end of the world for Captain Cucumber because it was only about half of the economy that was built up over here. Still inconvenient at the very best. Commando's getting shot down almost immediately. What happens when these hit the water? Oh, they just don't care. They're submersible. Okay, cool. I had no idea. These capture, by the way. Repair, patrol, move. No, they cannot capture. They do have that commando blaster, though, and it does a significant amount of damage. We start tearing apart this whole base. Yeah, not bad. I mean, it's better value than none, so we'll take it. Can they get back in the water? Oh, they can get back in the water. For some reason, I was under the impression that commandos were not amphibious. Apparently, they sure are. Honestly, you probably could have just walked them underwater. That might have been more effective, just walking them out into the water over here. Commando's very expensive, by the way. 1,200 metal, 15,000 energy. They are not a cheap unit by virtually any means. They're a very expensive one. The teams have both been set back to ground zero here, though. We're sort of, everybody's back to square one right now. The blue team trying to rebuild here. They still have a massive eco center, so this is definitely well worth being wary of. All these Shiva that are available over here, and tons of Marauder being pumped out by Zek. But still, this is way closer than I would have imagined right now. Big old Marauder run by. Love those little eyebrows that the Marauder have that shoot the anti-air. They pop up and have little eyebrows that shoot the anti-air and they go back down. Shiva trying its very best, but it is overwhelmed by the amount of Marauder running through over here. Nicely done by the purple player to continue applying pressure on the weakened joint right here, recognizing that they punched a hole through this area, so it's probably still going to be a little bit weak. Gunships coming out right here. Of course, there's that anti-air in those Marauders, so eventually these gunships are going to be shot out of the sky. Gunship's not particularly fast to kill any Marauder anyways, so the Marauder have plenty of time in order to deal with all this if the gunships are the only addressing of the Marauder that's going to happen here for the red team. And these Marauders are having a feeding frenzy. Blasting apart everything over here. Wind turbines, fusion reactors, anti-nukes, it all goes down. The Laughing Duck not paying attention. Commander goes down right there as the Marauder trade nothing for the Commander's life right here. Definitely a Miss Micro situation for the Maroon player. Going into an air lab here, but it will be shot down as well. And that is the entire base of our Maroon Commander wiped from the map as well. Everyone and their mother is being sent back to square one. Another counterattack over on this side. Looks like we had some Marauders sweep on through this side and try and do a little bit of damage over here. Constructor's trying. Marauder not going to let it happen. Manages to micro its way out of that situation. It was a very bad situation, but it still managed to live. Holding on with just 9% health right now. Absolutely brutal. A donkey never makes the same mistake twice. I beg to differ. I myself am a donkey. I've made the same mistake many a times. Okay, we've gone for even some Scorpions over here. Some pop-up Sabo batteries to harass down all these boats over here. It's pretty annoying. As the Green Commander, it's pretty annoying to keep your vessels stationed offshore over there just to have them blasted apart by Sabo batteries. There's also this LRPC firing from on high over here, trying to get some damage out. Doesn't exactly know what it's targeting, but it's targeting just about everything, so it's better than nothing. Both teams now wondering how on earth they're going to close this game out. Looks like the plan is for Zek to go for a Titan. Gonna go for one of those heavier Armada units here. The heaviest Armada unit, I suppose. Trying to accompany all these Shiva and Marauder with one of those Titans. Gonna be quite nice. We have a lot of anti-air here, so that's also really good to see. More Marauders trying to sneak their way on through. It's really these T2 torpedo launchers that are doing such a tremendous job of shutting these down. The depth charge launchers are fine. The submarine launchers, submarine torpedoes, I suppose, are fine as well. But yeah, really those long-range torpedo launchers are really what's tearing this place asunder, tearing this cluster of Marauder asunder. Bumlice reveals himself with a D-gun. Catches a couple of those Marauder, but I think it's going to cost him. Maybe not. Well, manages to escape with his life, just barely. 14% left on that green commander. This is unfortunate. Marauder do find the base here of the dark green commander. It's going to mean that all the build power goes down. I'm going to retreat back, and I think it's probably the right decision. Instead of fighting to kill the T2 live, I think it would have just been too much metal down the drain for not really all too much of a trade-off. Instead, the Marauder are going to try and find a position here on the land that they can express. Now, one thing that is oftentimes underrepresented but could certainly be effective is just parking these Marauder underneath the air wall. Like, you notice that there's all these fighters flying around. If you just park the Marauder somewhere, they're actually going to tear it down slowly but surely here. And it might not be the end of the world, you know, because those fighters, they're the only thing keeping bombers from completely winning this game right now. Fruity Booty. Oh, goes down but takes the Marauders with him. A valiant sacrifice after all, and these Resbots are going to be more than happy to pick that commander up once again. Something bizarre is happening to these Resbots. They have been traumatized by the death of their commander and are unable to put together the process of resurrecting. Yeah, they've got emotional issues. Bulwarks being set up aplenty over here. Pink Commander, I suppose, very fed up with all these Marauder run-bys that have been happening here, so establishing many, many lines of defense to try and, at the very least, keep some of these Bulwarks alive and some of these bases alive, making sure that, yeah, everybody manages to hold on just a little while longer. Shiva turned back to the sea. It's kind of an awkward engagement. Shiva find each other underwater. It's all about who can get out of the water first. Heavy hitters coming down south here, though. We do have a Titan followed up, well, two Titans actually, followed up by a Juggernaut over here. It's going to be a lot of firepower coming through. It's going to be a matter of whether or not the red team can hold. Bulwark's going to give it an honest try. Blasting away with all their lasers. A lot of these engagements come down to who can find the enemy's most vulnerable spot. And I feel like this just isn't a vulnerable spot whatsoever. Nice D-gun right there, by the way, from Fantastic Maw. I've got so much static defense set up, I wonder if it wouldn't be way easier to push through somewhere on this other side up here, on the northern side. There's all this exposed area all the way up this front, but without any proper scouting, the blue team isn't aware of it. So they keep trying to push through this area, which the red team has been well and fed up with. The blue team trying to cave in. D-guns are going to have to be on point here for Fantastic Maw. He needs to save his opportunity to D-gun here for the Titans and the Juggernaut here. If he can kill the Juggernaut, I'm guessing that the Titans are probably going to be able to be brought down here eventually. Enough gunships in the sky, I'm wondering. It's only 8 gunships now that I'm looking at it. It takes a lot to bring down those Titans, surely, but it'll take even more to bring down the Juggernaut. Titans are starting to group up. That makes me a little bit nervous. Yeah, nice splits right there. I think Zek smells that there's a commander lurking in the wait somewhere here. There it goes. Commander gets, heat blasted. Bulwark's trying to clean up everything over here. They're heavy lasers, doing great work, keeping all those goons off the back of the commander that's trying to go in for the D-gun here. Fantastic Maw goes for it, does get the D-gun on the Juggernaut, and it will bring it down. Wow. That was about as close as it could have gotten right there. Fantastic Maw doing the very most with the commander here to make sure that the Juggernaut is stopped in its tracks. Enough bulwarks to stunt the flow of all these goons here as well on both fronts, both on the northern side, well, the top side of this little hill here, as well as over for Mr. Trumnus. Very nicely done. Marauder again trying to push on through, but they're just not having much of an effect anymore. The age of the Marauder may well be past us. Whole lot of tumbleweeds rolling on up the hills over here. And they do discover, inadvertently, that there's nothing over here. Yeah, there's not really a whole lot of defenses. They find the tremors. That's nice. It's a great pick. 65 metal for one of those tumbleweeds. 1,850 metal for one of those tremors. So you can do the math there, but I'll tell you what, it's an efficient trade no matter how you slice and dice it. Commander trying to get a Twitcher up and running in a desperate attempt to get some build power going. T3 Lab was eventually blown apart right here, but it's not the end of the world for the Tank Commander because all of this eco is still up and intact. Oh, that was actually handed over now to the Pink Commander. He's going to be using it to build a whole bunch of static defenses, so that's quite nice. Bulwark's very good at dealing with this flow of, attack hover tanks, what are they called? Fast attack hovercraft. Gotcha. The finer details. Now, handing over the eco is generous and all that, but it does leave your bulwarks for want of energy. And they're definitely going to need it. Whole bunch of Marauder comes storming on through. Oh no, the commander, not paying attention, accidentally deguns down his own T2 Lab. Oh no. And what was once a valiant hold over here on this side has been blasted apart by a bunch of runaway Marauders. Advanced fusion reactors will take down those Marauders, so again, no splits over there, but still a very tricky situation. Oh, a whole bunch of submarines have been built over here. Okay. Croker, our orange player today, going to be trying to make something happen with a whole bunch of submarines down here. There's already a tremendous force of submarines, T2 submarines nonetheless, for the green players, both light and dark. It's going to be difficult for them to do all too much. Goons are slowly but very surely whittling down this advanced fusion reactor. Wonder if these Marauder might step a little bit further forward. There they go. Try and make sure that that advanced fusion reactor doesn't pop. Might not be the worst idea here. Bulwark's finally set up in large enough grouping over here that the goons are finally dealt with. Well, kind of. We need a couple more bulwarks, I think, yeah. A couple more bulwarks and this will be well fortified against the swarm. A efficient way of dealing with this swarm over here, which at this point I feel like should be spread out. I feel like we should really disperse this across the many faces of the red team here. Especially since we have perfect scouting of this area, right? All these goons are running up this hill and have great vision of exactly what's going on over here. I feel like it makes a whole lot of sense for the commanders in charge of this spam. There's actually two of them. Murderbot as well as, who's the other one? Zek, both of which spamming out a whole bunch of these hovercraft, and I wonder if it wouldn't be better spent trying to, send those hovercraft somewhere with a little less bulwarks. I mean, we are looking at a grand total of 14 bulwarks, 211 confirmed kills between all of them. Yikes. Tumbleweeds rolling, 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 rolling. And actually devastating the forces over here. That's quite impressive. Eventually, the Tumbleweed are destined to die. It is their destiny, after all, but they certainly serve their purpose, significantly weakening the forces on the shoreline. We do have a T3 gantry up and running here for our brown player mining. Wouldn't mind seeing maybe a Juggernaut worked on. Maybe a whole bunch of Shiva, some Cataphracts, anything like that. Juggernaut resigned to its fate over here. Going to start the self-destruct sequence. Might actually be too slow here. Oh, it's going to be close. Oh, Juggernaut does go down legit. That's going to be the Juggernaut face-palming into the dirt right now, leaving behind a juicy, juicy corpse of 17,400 metal for the red team to scavenge. The blue team has a phenomenal economic advantage right now. We're talking double the economy of the red team. However, a lot of their economy is being thrown away on a lot of projects that are not particularly useful at this time. Marauders starting to run up this hill. are trying their very best. Those Banishers putting in tremendous work over here, shutting down all those Marauders. Nicely done with the Banishers. Really love to see that. T1 Navy still finding some use, taking down some Marauders over there. Cool. Good to see. This, I guess it's an impressive composition here. Yeah, putting bulwarks back up. One after another. 3,000 metal per bulwark, but you can look at it, this juggernaut as 3, 6, 9, 12. About 4 bulwarks or so worth of metal. 5, I guess, because it's really 17,000 it started at. Scorpion turrets too, why not? This is becoming the most porcupined up southern side that I've ever seen. And it looks like, meanwhile, the hovercraft have realized, oh, wait a second. If we just go in any other direction, there's not 400 bulwarks waiting for us. And I have to agree that that's probably the better idea of the two. Here we go. Immediately, as soon as the scouting has occurred, and the blue team recognizes that there's no defenses up here on this northern side, save for a bunch of Banishers firing their Banisher missiles, immediately everyone starts sending their units on up over here. There is a capital ship in the works, well, out of the works, I should say, firing onto a bunch of shields, but there's 3 shields deep right here, so that ship is never going to be able to penetrate all the way through. Might fire a cursory glancing blow at the very least, but or at the very most, but not ever really going to be able to get all too much work done. Czar over here firing away, doing some good splash damage, but not enough to completely melt the T3. The Banishers, though. Oh, those Banishers. I have got to give credit where credit is due. The Banishers are making very short work of this Marauder here, joined with the Wasps up in the sky, firing away just as many tactical missiles. I think the pink player is about to go on a crusade to fortify the left-hand side now. How much metal in bulwarks do we have here? A grand total of 60,000 metal of bulwarks set up across the many coasts of the red team here. Submarines of all shapes, sorts, and sizes, dispatching many of these underwater tanks. The poison arrows, very heavy and very slow, but pack quite a wallop. They're also extremely durable, which is always nice. Orange player trying desperately to find a way to cram in a lab over here, make Navy work, but it's just never going to come up in time. Green team just has such a stranglehold on the naval position. I don't know if the blue team is ever going to find a really effective way of getting back in there. It'd be impressive to me. A shot from the LRPC over there. The tide of units is always difficult to deal with. The bulwarks is a really clever idea because it does clean them up so efficiently here. I just wonder if the right idea isn't to stop fortifying this side, which has already been well fortified, and instead start working on the stronger side, or the weaker sides rather, and have much less fortification over here. Efficient laser weapons will definitely take care of the spam of hovercraft right here, especially if you can catch them on these hills. They're never going to be able to push up into the forces that you have up on the flatlands. What a complicated battle. The Navy players need to find some leverage onto land here, but they just can't find the purchase. This capital ship is actually drilling through the shields much more effectively than I imagined it would. Marauder looking to get in on the action over here and starting to move this way. Eggroll's commander is in position. Ooh, D-gun. Oh no. Commander not paying attention. Does go down. Meaning there's a lot of Marauders now sneaking their way into the backline here. Poison Arrow, very heavy tank. It's essentially the Cortex equivalent to the Bull. It's extremely heavy, extremely pricey. People get mad at me when I compare this to the Bull. Let me explain myself. It fires a heavy projectile. It costs a lot of metal. And it does a tremendous amount of damage. It's pretty much as I mean. You also pay quite a significant price stipend for the ability to travel underwater. But I don't see why that makes it all too different. Another advanced fusion reactor goes up in the middle here to a couple more Marauder, pushing their way on up. The blue team apparently ready to end this game. Feels like they've been taking their sweet time. Marauders continue to push on in here. Gonna find a T1 lab that's inactive, as well as a whole bunch of build power over here. Always nice. Marauders struggling against the force field here. It's keeping a lot of these buildings safe by deflecting those shots off into the left, into the right, to the up, and to the down. Dragons in the backline, though, starting to fire on this advanced fusion reactor cluster. Oh no. Oh, the advanced fusion reactor goes down right there. That's unfortunate. That was a significant portion of the economy here for the pink player, who was the main defensive expert. Juggernaut was re-established over here. Wouldn't mind seeing it walk on by. See if maybe it could get some damage done over on this side. I doubt it'd be able to find the economies, but it'd be nice to see if maybe we can take out some units with it. Croaker has abandoned the match at this point, leaving behind an AFK corpse. Banisher's trying to fire out these, into those dragons over there. Nuke connects with the Laughing Duck's base. I think this is the end of a red empire. A valiant hold on the southern side here. Rebuilding again, and rebuilding a whole nother time over. But I think as soon as the blue team realized that it was the only fortified area on this entire map, although I suppose there's a little bit of fortification over on the northern side as well. A couple of bulwarks rather, some scorpions. Yeah, it was no contest through the middle of the map, and eventually the Marauders did run along through. Croaker inheriting, I guess not AFK, inheriting, I thought he was AFK because he was standing still there for a minute. Inheriting a whole big northern chunk of this base as everyone slowly taps out one by one. Mr. Timnus hiding over here, delaying the inevitable as these units sweep over across the ruined wasteland. Screamers firing away here. Very many of them firing away here. Oof. This dragon. Oh, looks like this Juggernaut did eventually decide to move on forward. That's quite nice. Well, at the very least, take out the production center here for the purple player. Not that it matters all too much anymore, but it is nice. And this is absolutely going to turn to a victory here for the red team. We'll go ahead and speed on into the end here as we watch the demise. The purple swarm sweeping across the map here. A lot of tumbleweeds coming out from our blue player, Duck Viking, as well. It's a remarkably efficient strategy, so can't blame him for going for it. I usually enable a tweak units that makes those bombs, makes them float across the surface of the water rather than underneath the water. Can make for a little bit more dynamic of a fight. Dragons easily taking care of all this. There's not a whole lot of anti-air here. There's a lot of screamers, but once those went up, it's basically nothing. You can shut down the dragons, and so they blast away all these bulwarks that are without power. And at this point, all eyes are on you, Mr. Tumnus. Any day now. This is where things get real awkward. You gotta start calling those resign votes. There we go. Tumnus finally taps out, and the red team finally falls. Blue team snatching victory here from what was a ground-shaking retribution over here. Their entire backline got ravaged by those Marauders pushing on through, but eventually managing to claw themselves back after a couple of little incursion attacks over on the southern side. Eventually managed to do some significant damage. Excellently done by all players involved today. GG, and I hope to see you in the very next Beyond All Reason video. Peace out, folks.